Hi, I'm Dan. Thanks for taking a moment to check in on Dimgaard. So, what is going on? What is the issue that has me most consumed in Dimgaard design this week? And I'll tell you, it's XP. I've been thinking a lot about XP. So, harkening back to 3.5, I was a real accountant on XP. Living Greyhawk really focused a lot on tracking XP. And even in the adventure design, which I did some writing for Living Greyhawk, as you may know, there were some pretty rigid constraints on that, on what you could use as far as XP. You weren't allowed to blow certain budgets. So I just kind of got in the habit of that. And that carried over into 5th edition. And that's the reason that my first Dimgaard campaign took 3 years. I was only awarding XP for creatures defeated, and that made for a very slow progression. Then I'm all right with that. It gave me a lot of time to really dig into each level. But I realized within months of into 5th edition that you really need to be that rigid on XP in 5th edition. And so the second adventure series, which was the Drow Conspiracy, it just ignores it completely. Just ignores XP totally. There's not even a reference to XP in there, except to say don't use XP. And it was 100% milestone based, and I guess I'm okay with that. Although I intend to revisit that Drow Conspiracy and update it with things I've learned since then. Just haven't had the time yet, but that's coming soon. And then the next one, the Synth Grimsbrain Chronicles, was even more exacerbated because it had big level jumps, right? You start out at like 3rd level and then you go to 7th. And, so it just really, not only did it ignore XP, it just ignored level progression. And so I've kind of pulled back from that. And so what we've settled into now, and I'm very happy with this, is we have adventures that are 21 episodes, and each episode corresponds to 1 level. And we ensure that in each episode there is sufficient XP to cover that level. Now, we've done a pretty in-depth examination of XP to get into this, right? So, for example, let's say you're looking at 12th level characters, and if I recall right, you can scale that so that it's 1 CR4 for each PC, with an extra creature for parties of 6 or more. The CR4 is 1100 XP. But if you look at the adjusted XP, based on the number of creatures you're presenting, you find that the adjusted XP for that 1100 XP creature is actually, I think, 3000 XP. Because or maybe it's 2000. Because a medium encounter is 2000, uses 2000 XP per PC budget. And a hard encounter is a 3,000 XP per PC budget. So in the really hard and gritty guidelines, even though each of those CR4 creatures counts towards your encounter budget as 2,000 XP, you would still only award 1,100 XP for that. That's like the baseline XP award. You defeat a creature, you get its XP, regardless of adjustments. But then there's some room for the DM to maneuver on. For example, it's left up to the DM to decide to award XP for traps or not. And how much to award for those traps. It doesn't even tell you. So you could decide to completely blow the cap. You could say, oh, this trap is like a deadly encounter, right? Which may be, I don't know. So we utilize that. We make hard traps, which we call hazards. They're more complex than just a straightforward trap. And usually those are going to correspond to a between a medium and a hard encounter. So we're going to award XP accordingly. So if you bundle that, and then when you look at the creatures, we have optional riders designed so that even though the encounter budget for the creatures we are putting into an encounter is a medium encounter budget, we expect that to be a hard encounter. And what we're saying there is that a lot of PCs are designed with more role-playing flavor in mind and aren't really optimized for combat. So using medium counter budget is going to result in a hard encounter. And a more common situation is that players understand that, oh yeah, I need to be ready for combat and I'm going to have a pretty good... And so we still want that medium encounter to be a hard encounter, even though we're using a medium the encounter budget to put in the creature. So we add things in there that make the creature more robust without changing its CR. So I'll just give you one of the most extreme examples. You can add piercing absorption, where a creature that takes piercing damage actually gets healed by that. And that actually has zero effect on CR. So it's 100% by the book. Damage absorption, no change in CR. Now, very, very commonly, your biggest damage dealers from physical attacks in a party are going to be relying upon piercing damage. They're going to be rogues with rapiers. They're going to be archers with piercing arrows. And saying, well, okay, you need to substitute. You need to find a way to do that damage because that piercing damage is going to heal them. That's a big task to overcome in an encounter, especially the first time PCs encounter it. But the XP award is silent on that type of thing. So what we do is, yes, we use a medium encounter budget, and then we attach these riders or these modifications that a DM can implement that technically do not change the CR of those creatures. But we know that's going to make the encounter more difficult. So when you look at the encounter difficulty, they have examples. So, for example, auto surprise, like if the monsters automatically surprise the PCs, it increases the difficulty of that encounter by 1. And so that's kind of what we're doing here, right? We're taking a medium encounter, say we're going to increase that to a hard encounter. Well, it is silent on what you do with the XP in that case. Because the underlying CR of the creature doesn't change, right? It's even though the encounter difficulty has been ratcheted up, the XP is not. So to reflect that, we assign what I consider a reasonable increase to XP to reflect the fact that even though it's using the creatures for a medium encounter, the encounter is expected to be hard. And that may be us taking a little bit of license, but we feel that it's fair. And then finally, we implement story awards. And story awards, again, there is no constraint. It's left up to the DM as the decision maker. And so we put in what we think are reasonable story awards. So using all of that, getting all that together, what we find is that in 21 episodes, we're going to get the PCs from first level, new characters, up to 20th level in that 21 episodes, with the final episode occurring at 20th level. So it's like the end game. But that doesn't mean that every episode is going to correspond to one session. Even using all the XP tricks that we do, when we're constraining ourselves to one episode per level, what we find is that in those medium, beginning at about 3rd level, trailing off at 11th level, those sessions or those episodes are going to comprise a couple of session days or adventuring days. And we presume that one adventuring day is going to consume a full session. One adventuring day is a good 3 to 4 hours of play. So that's the reason then that we structure our volumes the way that we do. So, we have the first episode as the loss leader, to give people an idea of the flavor of that adventure, that 21 episode adventure. Then we include that in the first volume just to ensure completeness, with episodes 2, 3, and 4. Presuming that you've already played episode 1, that 2, 3, and 4 are probably going to take you 4 sessions. It's going to take you. That's going to take you to the next volume where we have 5, 6, and 7. And again, those 3 episodes are going to consume at least 4, maybe as many as 6 or 7 sessions, depending upon how efficient and how long you play. Then 8, 9, and 10, same thing. Then we start to trail off. 11, 12, and 13, you're probably going to start getting caught up, right? Once again, we're back to those 3 episodes, going to be 4 sessions. Might get them all in 3, because 12 and 13 can move. Then, but at that point, we're confident that each volume is taking up the month to get you to the next volume. Then when we get to the 5th and 6th volumes, which close out the 21 episode adventure, we need to go. We're back into one adventuring day, takes you up 1 level, and you can get in an adventuring day in 1 session. Unless you get real deep into role playing, or that's great. I'm not saying that you should constrain yourself to an adventuring day equaling 1 session. I'm just saying we designed that way for several reasons. It allows for convention play. It allows for play for groups who have volatile player mixtures, people who are moving in and out on a session basis. That way, you're like, well, where did Bob the Barbarian go? We're in the middle of a dungeon here, right? It's like, well, no. Each episode is kind of designed so that you complete the adventuring day, get back into downtime. So if Bob the Barbarian needs to miss the next session because of work or kids or whatever, he's fine. And so it is because of the real analysis of XP progression that we have wound up skewing our volume releases in that way. And I'm pretty happy with that. I would certainly be open to alternative viewpoints or clarifying viewpoints or criticisms on that based upon some sort of an argument. So, for example, it has been suggested that rather than release these as discrete 21 chapters, why not wait until the very end and build one big volume out of it? Just do a 1 volume release. Do 6 of those a year instead of 12 volumes a year. And the answer to that is that this is for my weekly game as well, right? So each week I prepare material for my game, and I don't want to have to prepare a 21 chapter volume before I run my next week's game, for several reasons. For one thing, I don't know what my players are going to do, right? So I have a chapter prepared, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to start off going in the direction that I expect. They may throw a curveball at me, and by the end, I'm heading in a whole new direction that I'd never considered. And it may be a direction that I think, oh yeah, this is the way I want the story to go. So I'm going to adjust the storyline to reflect something good that's happened. That's happened many, many times. But anyway, if you have, so I'm not being defensive about that. It's been recommended by a couple of different people and a couple of different streams. And I don't think it's a bad idea. In fact, I intend to go back to each one of these and compile them into a single adventure for a big release at some point when I have the time. I don't think that is a bad idea to have those. I just don't think that I want to release them on a monthly schedule that way. That actually is contrary to the way I develop it and the way I play the game. But if you have ideas, would love to see some comments. Emails are always welcome. Comments either here in YouTube or out on the Patreon page or the Kickstarter volume pages. All those are great. So again, thanks for considering Dimgaard, and I hope we can meet your needs.